Al Jazeera podcasts.
Today, an attack on a flotilla challenging Israel's naval blockade of Gaza.
A Gaza-bound ship carrying humanitarian aid and activists was, according to its organisers, bombed by drones in international waters.
As Israel continues to block the flow of aid, what this means for Palestinians in Gaza and the activists trying to break the siege. I'm Manuel Rapalo, and this is The Take.
My name is Huwaida Arraf. I'm a human rights attorney based in the United States, and I am an organizer with the Gaza Freedom Flotilla.
Huwaida, thank you for joining us today on The Take. You are one of the original organizers of the Gaza Freedom Flotilla, which is an international civil society organization that's aimed at ending the blockade on Gaza. I want to talk about the organization, but let's start with the attack that took place on Friday against one of your vessels, the Conscience, in international waters. This was a drone attack against the vessel. What can you tell us about what happened and who may have been responsible for this attack?
Yes, in the early morning hours of Friday, May 2nd, our ship, the Conscience, which was in international waters, it was 14 miles off the coast of Malta. It was on its way to Malta to pick up a number of volunteers, dozens of volunteers from over 21 countries who were participating in a humanitarian mission to break the unlawful siege on Gaza and to carry in desperately needed life-saving humanitarian aid. So in international waters off the coast of Malta, the ship came under attack by drones, at least 2 strikes, which ignited a fire on the bow of the ship, compromising the safety of everyone on board.
Friends, right now we are off the coast of Malta. We are on the ship Conscious. They attacked our ship with drones a short while ago, and the front part of the ship crumbled to pieces. Right now, we are waiting 14 miles off the coast of Malta, and they attacked the ship with fiery bomb.
Thankfully, with the help of a tugboat in the area, the fire was put out, but there was great damage done to the ship. As for who is responsible, who hit us, I can't tell you 100%, but we highly suspect that it is Israel, because Israel has threatened us in the past. It has attacked us numerous times. It has killed 10 of our volunteers and injured dozens more. And it is the entity that is interested in keeping us and the humanitarian aid that we are carrying out of Gaza.
And it is my understanding that Israel has not commented on this attack. Is that correct?
It is correct that we have not seen them comment on this attack yet. We have seen in the Israeli media that there are attempts to label us as violent and interested in carrying out acts of violence when that is just the opposite of what is happening. For years, we have been taking action to confront Israeli state violence and terrorism against Palestinians. We have never conducted ourselves violently, never been interested in that. In fact, we are interested in mobilizing all of civil society, the entire world, to take action against the very just unspeakable violence being used against Palestinians, and including this one, which is a deliberate act of state violence. It was an armed assault on unarmed civilians destined to deliver humanitarian aid, food and medicine that is being denied, deliberately denied from the people of Gaza as it carries out this campaign.
And I want to ask you about the situation in Gaza as well, but where is the ship now? It was my understanding that it was at one point stranded after the attack in international waters. Where is the ship now?
It remained in international waters, exactly where it was hit. The captain and crew on board had asked repeatedly for permission to go into Maltese territorial waters. Not only did it need help, the ship is damaged, the people on board are traumatized, but also was very exposed because we were hit in this way in international waters, and there was no guarantee that we weren't going to be attacked again, leading to more lethal consequences. And so we've been asking for days for permission to enter Maltese territorial waters. That has been repeatedly denied until this very moment. However, we are in high-level talks with the Maltese government, and we recently received confirmation that they will allow us to enter, and hopefully also, as they said, will help us pay for the repairs to the ship.
And Huwaida, you've been a part of the Freedom Flotilla movement from the onset for years now. Can you explain what the movement is? Because there, like you mentioned, a lot of narratives floating around about what this organization is about. What is this most recent mission seeking to achieve?
Well, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition was formed in 2010, and it grew out of an initiative that I was also involved in before that called the Free Gaza Movement. And it was civil society really from all over the world that could not sit by and watch Israel systematically persecute the Palestinian people, specifically in Gaza, by imposing an unlawful siege that was having detrimental effects on the civilian population. So as we're seeing now, the siege has reached heights that it has never reached before as a result of decades of impunity. But it is not new. It is not just the last 2 months. It is not even the last 2 years. The siege has been ongoing since at least 2006. And before that, even Israel was controlling everything that gets in and out of Gaza, denying Palestinians their freedom and denying Palestinians the right to have access to basic necessities, including life-saving aid, not to mention food and water. And so how are we going to do that? We decided to try to sail a ship to reach Gaza from a European port through international waters into Gaza's territorial waters, not going into Israeli territorial waters, insisting on the right of the Palestinian people to receive us. It is hard, I think, for anyone to imagine what it is like to have everything controlled by a foreign power that is intent on destroying and getting rid of you. But that's what Palestinians in Gaza have been living under. And we wanted to challenge that. Challenge it because our governments were not challenging it, even though it has been said repeatedly by humanitarian organizations and attorneys, by the UN, that what Israel is doing is unlawful. Our countries have not lived up to their responsibility to uphold international law by placing any kind of pressure on Israel to stop these atrocities.
I mean, you have activists aboard this ship from all over the world, really. And it's my understanding that Greta Thunberg was supposed to be on this ship as well, lending her celebrity status at this point to shine a light on the action to sail this ship across the Mediterranean to bring aid.
I was part of a group who was supposed to board that boat today to continue the voyage towards Gaza, which is one of many attempts to open up a humanitarian corridor.
You know, I think the longer that this war drags on, the more attitudes continue to change toward Israel. What do you think it means that this attack on the vessel took place before Greta was even on board?
Oh, I think absolutely that was a consideration. In previous attempts to reach Gaza, Israel has hit us closer, 100 miles off the coast of Gaza, for example, when we were in international waters, which is still illegal, but doing it this time with, as you mentioned, Greta and other high-profile personalities on board would have increased the scrutiny and the condemnation of Israel. So it's what Israel did instead is bring its war machine over 1,000 miles outside of its own territorial waters to attack us off the coast of a European country. I mean, it was an assault, a state terror and piracy really in service of maintaining and continuing this genocide. And as you mentioned, Greta Thunberg and so many others around the world have been involved over the years from all different countries, all ages, all backgrounds and professions, and all political colors, really, from the right to the left. People just horrified by the reality that Palestinians have been forced to endure for decades because the international community has so failed to live up to its obligations in enforcing international law, especially when it comes to just upholding the right to life. And that we see as not only a horror because of what it's doing to Palestinians, but what it says about the future of our collective humanity. And so we have been empowered by all of the voices that have participated over the years and that will continue to participate, because one thing is sure: Israel has not succeeded in stopping this movement despite all of the violence that it has used against us. We're coming upon the 15-year anniversary where it killed 10 of our volunteers on board in 2010, and that did not stop the movement.
Death on the high seas. Under cover of darkness, Israeli special forces descending upon the Mavi Marmara as it made its way through international waters, heading towards Gaza. The Israeli raid turned deadly, with soldiers opening fire with live ammunition on those aboard.
And so even though they attacked us and they disabled our ship now, it is not going to stop our attempt to confront and break the siege and reach the people of Gaza.
More with Huwaida after the break. Hi, Manuel Rapalo here. Before we continue today's show, I wanted to talk to you about Hindsight, a dramatized history show from Al Jazeera Podcasts. We have a season 7 beginning on Wednesday, May 7th. But in the meantime, you can catch up with season 6 right here on Al Jazeera's YouTube podcast tab and listen to all other seasons wherever you get your podcasts. Here's a preview of season 7.
I want to sing, Hassan. That's all I want.
Hindsight, a dramatized history podcast from Al Jazeera.
Have you seen what the British have done? They have stabbed us in the back.
I'm your narrator, Charles Dance. In season 7, we meet people from the Arab world, including dynastic leaders.
I was in my early 20s and running Egypt.
Under my rule, Muslims will retake our lands from foreign invaders.
And artists, like the famed French-Algerian writer Albert Camus.
There is something deeply absurd about the search for meaning.
At that moment, I was no longer Amal al-Atrash. I became Asmahan.
Egypt's sisters in crime.
We were mere spectators who provided food and drinks.
We're not killers.
You've heard of them.
My name is pronounced Salah ad-Din.
I am Shagarat ad-Dur, Sultana of Egypt.
Now it's time to hear from them.
You may call me Faisal.
My name is Raya Ali Hammam.
I am Skin Ali Hammam.
Hindsight, a dramatized history podcast from Al Jazeera. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
So, Huwaida, this flotilla was carrying aid to Gaza, where since March the 2nd, Israel has blocked all food, all aid, medicine, fuel from entering. The situation, to say the least, is dire. A majority of Palestinians, including children, are facing severe hunger, malnutrition, starvation. What can you tell us about the state of the humanitarian crisis as it stands now, particularly in the north?
I don't know if there are any words left to describe the horror of what we are being forced to watch in terms of this, a country, a rogue, violent country systematically, deliberately denying food and medicine to an entire population, and especially children. And that is not even touching on the psychological trauma of being bombed almost daily for 19 months, losing your home, being exposed to the elements. Who know, a lot don't even have tents to sleep in, have lost limbs, have lost family, and now can't even find bread to eat. Right now, our focus is trying to save people's lives in Gaza. The World Health Organization last week said already they had totally run out of food. All of the warehouses done. It is done. And still countries are allowing Israel to do this. I would advocate and call on all of these organizations that are trying to do good work, from the United Nations to Save the Children to Oxfam, all of these other organizations that had their trucks lined up waiting to get into Gaza. Stop waiting for Israel's permission to come through. Stop trying to negotiate permission to enter. Collectively drive in now. That's what we need to do. We need to break barricades, break borders, to insist on getting to Gaza and get them the aid that is going to help save their lives. But we know, even if aid reaches them today, the damage that has been done to an entire generation is irreversible. It is irreversible, and that is the intent, and that is also the evil of all of this.
Part of what you're doing is raising visibility. Part of what you're doing is changing hearts and minds. But what would you say to someone who is seeing the news of this latest attack on one of your vessels and thinking, wait, this is just political theater. This is purely symbolic. It's a high risk. It's not delivering aid at scale. What do you say to those criticisms?
Well, it's absolutely not delivering aid at scale. It is less than a drop in the bucket of what Gaza needs. But it is an action that needs to be undertaken because we can't sit by silently as Israel starves an entire population to death. Children are starving and are dying, and we know that starvation takes hold and kills first the youngest. So the age group of 5 and under are being the first to wither away and die as aid is waiting. 3,000 trucks we know are waiting to come into Gaza and are being denied entry by Israel. This is abhorrent, and even though it's being condemned, not only by organizations and by the UN and children's humanitarian organizations, but by countries. The problem is that countries are only issuing statements, they're not taking action, and they have it in their power to take action. They have it in their power, especially the United States, which is not only complicit, it is an active partner with Israel in what it's doing, but also these European countries that claim to uphold international law. They can sanction Israel. They can put their own aid on a ship and insist on breaking this blockade. And we have to stop it. And if it's by taking this action to say, no, we will not accept this. Yes, we will put our lives on the line. No, none of us want to die. I have 2 young kids myself, and everybody that participates has a family, has responsibilities, has a love of life and a desire to continue. But we also, more scary to us than the prospect of being attacked, seriously injured, or killed by Israel is the thought of allowing Israel to succeed in this. And what kind of world would that say that we are living in? And so we firmly believe that everyone around the world needs to take this action. What we do need is others to follow.
Huwaida, there's so much urgency to the situation right now. I'm wondering what you're hearing from people on the ground in Gaza. The flotilla has stopped. The aid is not on its way. What are you hearing from people on the ground? And at this point, at this stage, what do you think the response needs to be from the international community?
The situation on the ground is indescribable. And not to have a bag of flour to make even bread. We're not even talking about the nutrients that children need. People in Gaza haven't had fresh fruits and vegetables and meat and protein for months. And now their only source of calories, the carbohydrates, have been taken away from them. Doctors are saying, in many instances, they don't even have gauze to stop bleeding. People who are injured and have injuries that should not be life-threatening are dying. And people are not being able to recover from injuries because their bodies can't fight it, because they are starved. And the fact that this is a deliberate policy is just inexcusable. It is horrifying. And yes, we have been stopped right now, but we are not stopping in our efforts to break this siege, to get to the people of Gaza. And I must say that while it is a dire crisis right now for people to get food and medicine, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition and our initiative wasn't ever only about humanitarian aid. Palestinian people aren't asking for handouts. We aren't interested in perpetuating this reality that Israel has created where Palestinians have to survive on aid otherwise. We are fighting for the liberation of the Palestinian people, their right to live in freedom and dignity, the right to be able to work and feed their children. That is what they are asking for. But right now, it is not guaranteed that they live another day, not only because of the bombs that have been funded by the United States and have been falling incessantly and have killed tens of thousands already, but now because people don't have a loaf of bread to eat or a drop of water.
Huwaida, Israel's security cabinet this week unanimously passed a plan to seize all of the Gaza Strip. I know that your calls are for an end to the siege. I know that your calls are for an end to the occupation, but how do you respond to this latest news?
It is not surprising. It is not surprising because it's not only about a siege and an occupation. Those are all part of a larger secular colonial project that is intent on getting rid of the Palestinians. And over the decades, it has been more quiet, the plans of Israel to slowly get the Palestinians to leave, squeezing them into smaller and smaller areas of land as Israel confiscates lands, confiscates resources, and makes it difficult for Palestinians to survive on their land. And it has been magnified in what we see in Gaza, and Israel's not hiding it anymore. Yes, they want to take over all of the land. Yes, they want to expel all of Palestinians. Colonization is a crime. It is a crime against humanity, and the world declared decades ago that we are not tolerating this, that all peoples should be free. And we have to understand it in that, because what is secular colonialism? They need to replace the indigenous people of the land. And so you either kill them, expel them, or what little numbers are left, you seek to impose domination over them. And that is exactly what we've seen. And the fact that over the years, Israel has been doing it, and not only they haven't been stopped, the countries, especially the United States, have enabled it, not only with money, not only with our tax dollars, but with providing immunity from any kind of accountability. And so it has reached a point where Israel does feel like it can carry out a full-scale genocide, extermination of an entire people before the eyes of the world and not have to worry about any kind of accountability, because it believes that the United States and Europe will always have its back. And that's what needs to end. It is the reason that we are where we are today. As an international human rights attorney, I feel silly continue to repeat this, because what Israel and the United States have done is try to show that international law means nothing now. It means absolutely nothing. It's the law of the jungle, and might is right. But we have to continue insisting. We have to continue insisting that no, international law and human rights law will not be trampled upon. We have to defend it, because that is the defense of life. And that is what we stand for. And that is the only way we survive as a collective human family.
And I think we can leave it at that. Huwaida, thank you so much for joining us today on The Take.
Thank you for having me.
And that's The Take. Now we want to hear from you. What stories do you want to see next on the show? Let us know in the comments below what you'd like us to cover. Your feedback helps shape future episodes, so don't be shy. See you on Monday.